Now, South Africa's Zozibini Tunzi will relinquish her Miss Universe crown when the much-delayed pageant is held later this month, but not after being the longest-reigning queen in the history of the competition. It's an additional achievement that came about as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, as her usual year-long reign was extended, as the pageant itself was postponed. Our U.S. correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease met up with Zozi in New York for a catch-up before her departure for this year's spectacle in less than 2 weeks. Let's take a look.
In conversation with South Africa's Zozibini Tunzi just weeks ahead of her officially relinquishing her crown as Miss Universe, and of course our location today, the residence of South Africa's ambassador to the United Nations. Zozi, good to see you, but good to see you in person after all the Zoom conversations we've had. How are you doing?
I'm good. So good to see you in person too. Everything has been virtual throughout the whole year. So to see you in person is actually so good.
Is this a bittersweet moment, right? 2 weeks basically before you have to relinquish the crown, or are you ready to get this crown off your head?
It is bittersweet. I mean, being the longest reigning Miss Universe, that's how people have been addressing me this whole time. You know, Miss Universe, and now it's going to be a little strange not having that title. So it's a little bitter in that sense. I'm going to miss the people as well that I've been working with, hopefully continuing the relationship with other organizations that I've been working with, but happy at the same time to be able to open a new chapter in my life and to be back home as well with my family, and haven't seen them in a very long time. So I'm very excited to see them.
I mean, you're into the 17th month of your reign. This is normally a 12-month affair. This really has been everything you probably didn't expect when you won this crown in December of 2019. Just talk about what this last year has actually been like for you.
My goodness. You know, I have said always that I want my reign to be special and memorable, and it was all of those things. I just don't think we all expected a global pandemic to happen. And so it was a little difficult to navigate at first, and I had to come with the reality of, you know, the things that were happening. But eventually, you know, I hit the floor running, and I was able to integrate into the new virtual world as much as everyone else, because I always tell people that it's nice to travel, it's a part of the job, but it's not all the job is about. And the most important part of being Miss Universe is the impact that you make and then the hearts that you touch. And I feel like I did that as well, even though it wasn't there personally, but virtually.
I think it's also just important to explain to our viewers that we are having this conversation maskless because both of us have been vaccinated. But of course, that also just speaks to the disparities. You know, these two South Africans having a conversation in New York because they have access. That's not necessarily the case everywhere around the world, including our own country. What's your thoughts about COVID-19 and where we are in the world today?
Yeah, it's very strange because I was actually speaking to my family, telling them that I just got my second shot, and they were like, you're literally the first person we know in person who has that. And it's so sad to speak to that I can just go onto an app and get an appointment and go get a vaccine when there's people, you know, back home who don't even have access to that. And so it speaks so much. I think COVID has drawn a clear line, you know, between the privileged and the underprivileged. And I think that this should have been the time for world leaders, for governments, for all of us to just step back and look at where we are as the world and try to fix things. And so I know people say, we can't wait to get out of the pandemic so we can get back to normal. And I'm like, I don't know if I want us to go back to normal. I want us to do better.
You know, when this journey for you started, you know, race was very much part of the conversation. I remind you of your one of the answers you gave at the pageant. I grew up in a world where a woman
who looks like me, with my kind of skin and my kind of hair, was never considered to be beautiful. And I think that it is time that stops today.
Race was part of this intentionally, and then you moved to the United States where race was very much part of the conversation. Two bookends, if you will, was the killing of George Floyd and the killing of South Africa's Lindani Myeni. What's that journey been like for you, being in a country that has really confronted so much about race and those prescient remarks you made at the beginning?
Yeah, you know, being from South Africa, I know a thing or two about race and racism. And so to be here in the States and seeing it happening as well, I actually even took part of the Black Lives Matter movement within being there at the march and holding a couple of panels as well, bringing people into conversations to see how we can have these meaningful conversations and bringing ways in which we can end systemic racism. And so it's been interesting being a part of that. And also you speak of, you know, George Floyd and Lindani. And it was very interesting for those things to be happening so close together, because here we were at one end celebrating, using that word very loosely, that we had come to a verdict of a guilty for, George Floyd. And then at the same breath, here we are looking at a death of a South African at the hands of the same people. And so it's like, are we really moving forward as the world? It raises a lot of concerns, and it's been a lot. It's been a long year, and I am happy to have used my voice where I can, but my voice enough and our voices that's not enough, for change. Change needs to happen.
Yeah, it's a bit like a drop in the ocean in many ways, but you've also been very focused on issues of gender equality, gender equity, a voice for the He for She campaign, working with the United Nations. What's that trajectory? Having this platform, what's your reading of how things are developing on that score?
Once again, it feels like a drop. It feels like we're barely scratching the surface, but I feel like it's so important to say that when we speak up, things actually do start to shift, and change, and that when we try to really unite as one voice, things happen. I think it has taught me this time to see that it's so important to not be a bystander, because bystanders are actually contributing so much to the problem of what is happening. And so having these conversations with as many people has really opened my eyes to saying we can start it with the conversation first, but we can go so much more further. And so it starts there. What conversations are we having at home? What conversations are we having with our colleagues? Are we being educational in the things that we say? But also people trying to find out as much as they can about bridging the gap. And so it is doing something, but it's not really enough, but it's a start.
All right, let's move on from the social issues and talk about the pageant that's upcoming, right? You are the outgoing Miss Universe. I've seen you do these Instagram lives with some of the contestants that are part of this competition. What are you telling them? What are you telling them about this job? Of course, yours is friend, in terms of a pandemic, we're sort of getting to the end of that now. So what are you telling them?
To one, have fun in the journey and enjoy themselves, because I know when we get there, we like to psych ourselves up, especially with the week coming to the event. I want them to have so much fun and to make friendships and to make bonds, but most importantly, I want them to know how important this platform is, not only for themselves, but for their countries, for their families, and for the universe in general. Because when you step onto that platform, people know that you have a voice and they listen to you. And so I really want them to use it as responsible as possible. Especially because so many people are listening and wanting to learn and watch from you. So I want them to take into account what a great opportunity they have to impact positively on, social change, but also build up themselves as well as brands and business women in their own rights.
Winning this crown was obviously a very proud moment for yourself, for your family, but also for a country and an African continent. What's the level of support been from back home during this past year, a difficult one at that? And what's your message to the people of South Africa as you now get ready to relinquish?
It has been fantastic. From the day that I left South Africa to compete, I've always had, South Africa behind me, cheering for me, to the day that I won, to my homecoming. I think just seeing it on social media and seeing it in person as well has been fantastic. And people sending love during the pandemic, because they kind of get it. They get that a lot of travel was supposed to happen and they know that it didn't happen. And sometimes I feel like it hurts them more than it hurts me. But I want to thank them so much for all the love and the support and all the compassion that they've shown me throughout this year, and hopefully I will carry that with me for the rest of my life.
Final question for you. Yes. It's a short one. What's next? What are you going to be doing next?
A lot. A lot of things that I can't speak about, but definitely getting into television, love television and media. So that's definitely in the books for me. I'm a humanitarian at heart, and so I want to continue with, humanitarian work, extend my relationship with UN Women as well. And I don't know, maybe try out some music. I don't have a demo out yet, and I know a lot of people are like, are you dropping an album? No.
What genre, Zozi?
I'm definitely looking into R&B. I love that kind of music, but it's just something fun that I want to try out and see what happens with that.
Thanks for always making time to speak with me, to speak with the SABC, and thanks for being such a wonderful ambassador for South Africa and our continent. Congratulations again, and good luck. May the wind continue to be at your back.
Thank you so much, Sherwin.
All right, Zozibini Tunzi speaking to us here at South Africa's, the residence of South Africa's ambassador to the United Nations, of course, officially handing over that crown May 16th in Hollywood, Florida, and we'll be watching.